trip was great. A big reason of why I like taking these smaller scale cars in there is because typically we pack the big car beyond belief with just camping stuff, and the little cars take up so much less room. It's just unbelievable. So I'm not gonna talk about why I brought these. I'm gonna talk about how these things have been over the years. So I've had this car, well, since you saw me review it about, what, 2.5 years ago? Since then, the only change I've ever done to this car was the motor, and that was done, I believe, during that video. It even has the original plastic WPL drive shafts. Not a single problem whatsoever. This top roof basket here, this is normally on the earlier C54. That's the old style chassis. I made these lights here they run off a 2S battery, and they are nice and bright. Work great. We ran them around quite a bit at night. This vehicle, really the only thing that bothers me about it is its full forward, full reverse on the throttle. It doesn't have a brake setting, which is too bad. It is, of course, fully proportional. Battery packs and usage. This car probably pushing around 200 or so battery packs, maybe more. It seems to run forever. On the last trip, we probably put 3 or 4 packs a day on this car. Ran awesome. The LDRC Unimog, again, you've seen this in previous videos on this channel. I almost forgot to do any kind of recording for this vehicle because it seemed like the main reason we brought it was for utility. Our tent was about 100 feet or so away from my wife's parents, where the kids, of course, wanted to hang out and play. So as we were going back and forth all the time, it's like, oh, we forgot the water bottles, we forgot the hot dogs, we forgot whatever. Well, we have this little truck, and that's kind of what I used it for. It was going back and forth, loaded with stuff. My son loved, driving around like that. I did too. Come on, I'm a big kid, whatever. Runs beautifully. The only real issue that I've had with this truck, and something I didn't notice before, open the hood actually, so I'll take it out anyway. This thing munches its way through battery packs. And I think the reason why I've noticed it more this last trip is because I drove it longer distances. Before it'd be like just around the tent, and we'd go on a little walk or something, and kind of at a walking pace. This time it was back and forth to the tent, to the other tents, and it was like full throttle the whole time, full of stuff in the back. So it seemed like I was changing the pack all the time. Another thing that I did notice quite a while ago is that the the dual motors in this vehicle, they get hot. And I have informed LDRC of this, saying a really amazing option would either be a metal motor plate or a pair of fins for the motors. That'd be really awesome. Otherwise, since I've owned this vehicle, it has never had a problem whatsoever. It runs beautifully. It's very smooth. It's, again, I don't think I've done anything on this vehicle mechanically. Have I? No, I haven't even changed the wheels, which is weird. So yeah, wonderful truck, metal front bumper, metal rear bumper, has lights at night, and yeah, it's a great truck. Last but least is the Jimny. One of the big changes I've done to this vehicle is I added a set of oil-filled shock, internal pieces. I'm going to cover it in the future, but basically there's a factory part that replaces, well, actually just sits inside the shock body. And just what an improvement. Way better suspension. This particular one used to get like the shock shaft and the shock body would kind of get like cocked, and it would like lock itself in one position. Very annoying. Since then, it's been perfect. Again, mechanically, there's no other changes to the vehicle. It has the factory plastic drive shafts, no problem whatsoever. I did install the WPL light set, so headlights, turn signals, taillights, all that's in there. These wheels have been around for years. You should probably seen these on the old WPL FJ many years ago. Same on this vehicle here. We did add a bunch of randomness in the vehicle because we wanted to make it a little more interesting. I really should do something cosmetic on the car because that's not really how I roll with a kind of a plain white car with a plain black interior, but that's kind of where it is. This truck, like its Land Cruiser buddy over there, they share a very similar platform. That Land Cruiser was the first one to have this more updated, nice molded link chassis. They both were heavily used on this trip. Anytime that we went on a walk, pretty much anytime that we were just not using the Unimog, we had both these two out. Actually, side note, one of the things I love about the Land Cruiser, if I can pry this open here with the little stick it came with, is that, oh, they're in here. I can actually shove two batteries in here. One is the one I'm using, and one is the backup. I love that 2 packs fit in there. I think that's awesome. That's kind of gonna take me to my biggest complaint about the Jimny or the Samurai, is getting the battery out is just such a pain. Do I have any pliers? I feel like my son can do it no problem. He has tiny fingers, but every time I'm here, it's like the battery just shuffles over to one side. I just can never, ooh, is that gonna come out now? Nope. Anyway, I'm gonna argue with the Samurai for a little bit. But other than that, yeah, no complaints here. My friends, that's all the video was gonna be about. It was just taking these things out on a nice drive and hopefully giving you some more feedback if you are interested in any of these vehicles. Thank you so much, and we'll see you soon.